Good morning. It's just after 7 o'clock on a beautiful Sunday morning. I'm 1 mile into a scheduled 12-mile run, and I just thought I'd give you all a short update on where we stand now with the London Marathon. I think you'll recall last time, obviously it was scheduled to be running in April. COVID came along, that obviously couldn't happen, so it was pushed out to October. By the time that happened, I'd already done a fair bit of training and didn't want to waste it, so I ran the distance locally around my home back in March, proved that I could do it, and was therefore looking forward to October to do the real thing around that wonderful course down in London. But it was clear to me from, actually many weeks ago, that the likelihood of that event actually happening was, well, let's just say slim at best. But the organisers have been sort of keeping us all hanging on, saying they're still working on it, be patient, carry on training, and were due to give a final answer about a couple of weeks ago. And that day came, I think it was 2 weeks ago today, and the result was, we still don't know, but carry on training, and we'll let you know in 10 days, but we're really hoping to do something. And if I'm brutally honest, I wasn't best impressed with that, because I could see that as an event in London, there was not a chance it could go ahead. And yet here we were, being asked to continue to train in the middle of summer in anticipation of an event in October. Now, for those who run marathons, you'll know this, but you just don't go out and run 26.2 miles. There's a lot of road miles like now that you've got to do to keep your fitness up and prepare yourself for the big day. And it's a lot to go through if at the end of the day you know it's going to be cancelled and ultimately wasted. I'd already had that once back in March, and again, no complaints about that. Nobody could anticipate COVID was coming along, but I felt they could have at least postponed the October event many weeks ago and saved me an awful lot of training time. Anyway, that's just a personal opinion. I would still have been running, but just not the amount of miles you need to do to keep up for the marathon or prepare for the marathon. Anyway, winding back about 2 or 3 days, and we've now had the official announcement, and that is, as predicted, there will be no London Marathon in October this year. In fact, the next scheduled London Marathon won't even be in April next year. It'll be a year in October. So, as it stands, I'm now 8 weeks away from the event. You may wonder why I'm still training for a marathon that isn't going to happen. But here's the catch. It actually is. And initially, again, I have to say, I wasn't too impressed with this. What they're proposing is the the elite runners, the people who can do this damn thing in nearly 2 minutes, whereas it takes me virtually 6, will be allowed to compete. So there'll be a field of elite runners lapping round, I forget which one of the parks in London, with a view to holding the event. No spectators, very limited field, so at least there'll be something on telly for the viewers to watch, because frankly they're more interested to see which of the two current world bests can come good on that day and what time can they do it in. But for all us amateurs, what they've given us is a new option, which is you don't have to, it's not mandatory, But if you pay up 20 quid, an additional 20 quid, you can compete in the virtual London Marathon. And essentially what that means is you run it just like I did back in March. So you run it, well actually you can run it anywhere in the world that you like, but I think the inference is it will be where you live. And you have a 24-hour window to run it in, so it's from midnight to midnight on the Sunday of the actual event. You'll get an app, which is yet to be developed, I assume, that will track that you've actually done it, and at the end of it you will still get, assuming you complete it, a physical certificate and a medal, I believe, to say that you've done it. But most importantly, I'm guessing this is the reason for them wanting to do it, the sponsorship is still valid for that virtual race, and therefore the charities who have been really missing out on what's normally a bonanza day for them will get some money. So initially my thoughts were, oh crikey, I think I mentioned in my first video log I'd only ever intended to do the marathon once, and that would be on the day in the London Marathon. That's obviously out the window. But I'd sort of discovered that if I can run the distance, I don't mind doing more than one, but under my own terms. And having to run it again in October, I wasn't, to be honest, that happy about, with the view that I'd have to start training all over again in a year's time, or just under a year's time, ready for the 2021 marathon. But on reflection, and a couple of nights' sleep, I've changed my mind. I actually think it is a good idea. I'm 8 weeks away from it. I'm already up to 15 miles. It isn't that big a deal for me to continue the training for another 8 weeks. And on the day, the way I'm looking at it now is the virtual London Marathon will be quite a unique experience. I'm hoping it will be the only ever one, because next time hopefully COVID will be maybe not completely behind us, but behind us in such a way that you can actually have the event, and therefore as a one-off it is probably quite an opportunity not to miss. And assuming my entry for 2021 goes ahead, it will mean, for the sake of 20 quid, which is neither here nor there, I would actually end up with 2 London Marathon medals. So actually, good on the organisers. I think if there was one criticism, they've clearly had this plan in the back pocket for quite some time. I just wish they'd have communicated it a bit earlier. Had I had more time to reflect, I would probably have jumped at it, but the fact it came so late just annoyed me a little bit. So here's the deal. It's 8 weeks today to the virtual event. I will be running it. I'll be putting in the 26.2 miles around Southport, where I live. I've no idea what the app is going to be, whether you'll be able to monitor my progress on the day, see how fast, or rather slow, I'm actually going, and when I've finished. But I'm sure they'll do something which is, let's just say, worthy of the event. So for those who sponsored, rest easy, your money is still good, and if my understanding of it is correct, and I get the official confirmation I'm waiting for this week, the money will go to the charity Macmillan Nurses as planned, a couple of months after the virtual event. What happens to the sponsorship for next year, I don't know yet. Whether it's the same charity or whether we have an opportunity to try a different charity, I don't know. My guess would be, the virtual event is for this year's charities, and next year will be a new one. So, October the, I'll try and get it right this time, October the 4th is the date. 8 weeks time, I'll be running it virtually. Well, I'll be running it very physically, but it won't be in London. It'll be on an app, hurtling around Southport. I've no idea, as I say, what you'll be able to see or not of it. There was some feedback on my last videos that people seem to like the idea of these video blogs as I'm trundling around, so I will try and do a couple of those. But the marathon is on. In fact, it's on twice. And at the end of this, in about a year and 8 weeks' time, not only will I have run one marathon, I'll have run 3. Hey ho, such is life. So that's all. I shall now concentrate on trying to keep my pace. I started off 25 minutes in, hoping to be back before 10, or long before 10 o'clock. Got a decent breakfast and achieved a few things today. So many thanks for watching. That's the latest. If I hear any more, I will of course let you all know. Take care and goodbye.